as you all know, maybe not everybody knows, but we think of Baba as having been our Jesus. And so this is also an Advent. He's come again as MeherBaba. I'm throwing the heavy stuff right at you. This is an Advent. Tonight's subject I chose is Baba, the Avatar, which means Christ, or Rasul, as Islam people say, as the game designer of the universe. Some of you may know that I've spent the last 30 years of my life designing games. And I always think of Baba as the one that put me into that career. In 1952, just before I met him, I got invited to belong to a game company, to join a small game company. And at that game company, I invented the infamous number painting. But I always felt that it was Baba's hand in putting me in a delightful career of inventing games. As Aldous Huxley says, a game is an artificial life situation, miniaturized life situation. And it has certain elements. It has a playing field. It has rules. It has a goal. It has players. It has some competition, usually, winners and losers. And above all, it's an illusion. And when you think of how Baba created the whole universe as a game, because we're in illusion, it's a field of play in illusion. And Baba has made several references to the fact that it's all illusion, and it's his play. He talks about his play of illusion. The Leela is the word for it in Hindi, the divine Leela, the game. So I always used to think of that when I was designing games. And so we can ask in Baba's world, our game of creation, Baba's game of creation. We have the playing field, and a playing field always has boundaries. You can't get off the game board. You can't get out of the field of play. And that's where we're at. You can't jump out of the universe. You can't jump out of the cosmos. You might try, and some people try desperately. They commit suicide or blow their mind with drugs or something. You can't do it. You're still in the field of play. It has boundaries. And then it has rules. There are rules. As Baba said, he set up the creation, and his divine law runs the whole thing. And the divine law covers everybody and everything. Even when Baba takes form as the God-man, he plays by his own rules. He takes a human form, he lives a human life, and so on. But when we're just children in evolution, we don't know the rules. But as we go along and grow up, so to speak, in evolution, and come to involution, the spiritual path, we get more concerned about these rules. What are they? The law of karma, the law of cause and effect, the rule of love. It pays us to know. We want to know what the rules are. And there's some actual games on the market. For example, diplomacy is one game that it takes about 4 hours to learn the rules before you can even play. And there are Dungeons and Dragons that take even longer. And it's sort of where we're at. It takes a long time to learn the rules of what we're playing in illusion, in creation. And maybe we don't understand all the rules. But with Baba, we have a tremendous impetus, a guide who has given us, in as many incarnations as the Christ, as Ram, as Zoroaster, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, and now MeherBaba, clarifying the rules. giving us the help to know what rules we're playing by. And especially the goal. This game has a goal. Every game has a finishing point. And that goal is set too. You can't change that goal. You can't say I don't like it. Or you can say you don't like it. But you're going to reach the goal, whether you like it or not. Yay! And it's a wonderful goal. The goal is union with God. And you can describe that in various languages, whatever. And everyone gets to the end of this game. That's the wonderful part. Someone always gets there a little ahead of the other one. But that's okay too. In other words, it's like a real game, a race game or Candyland or what. You know, somebody gets there first, and then second and third, but everybody gets there. There are no winners and losers in the sense that we all achieve this wonderful goal in Baba's game. But as we play, sometimes we're opponents and sometimes we're partners. Sometimes we do each other in. I hate to think of all the past lives where I've done people in. And who knows, maybe some of you are sitting right here. You've been opponents, partners, lovers, children, family, enemies on the battlefield. Just hundreds and hundreds. The Bible says we've had 8,400,000 lives. He repeats this figure here and there. Before we even get to the entrance to the real spiritual path, where we make more rapid progress on this Candyland path to God, through the plane, through the spiritual plane. So just imagine how many lives you have. I'll give you a little humorous thing. Mrs. Deuce, when she met Baba, she had some private talk about her family, and her husband, Mr. Deuce, was kind of complaining a little, I guess, like everybody wants to. And he said, "Why do you worry so much about this husband? Just think, you don't know how many husbands you have." I don't know, it's just Baba's sense of humor. Why are you going to worry so much about this, quote, person in your life? I mean, or this child, or this sweetheart, or what? You've had just thousands, hundreds of thousands of family people in your life. And in every game, you know how you have the luck of the die, you know. You have lucky rolls, or whatever you want to call it. You draw the right card, and that speeds you up. Chutes and ladders. Come on up, don't stand on this day. And we all know that our luck, the biggest luck, is to meet the avatar, to get hooked up to the avatar. This speeds evolution in an incredible way. In fact, the Sufis say 1 moment spent in the presence of a perfect one is equal to 100 lives of spiritual effort on your own. So just think how lucky you are to contact the avatar. It cuts off incredible amounts of karma. It speeds up your evolution in a way that we can't even fathom. I think the only way you get a little glimpse of it is when Baba met or contact animals would contact Baba, like the dog at Mehermount. Baba patted its head, Wolf, and said, "Because he met me, in his next life he'll be a human being." I mean, that's a tremendous jump in consciousness.
That's a good roll of the dice.
Yeah, it's a good roll of the dice on the board. And then his own dog, Peter, it's quite a story, I won't take the time, but when Peter was dying, he died very slowly, and he was kind of breathing. And he finally died. Baba said, with each breath, I was advancing him from the dog state to the human state, through all the evolution, 8,400,000 lives, and on to the first spiritual plane. Now that is the lucky roll. And you always have choices in this game. As I say, you have to know the rules. If you don't know the rules, you get hurt, or you're ignorant. But the more you know, the better your choice. And the better your gambling. And most people, ordinary gambling is strictly numerical. But with Baba, if you know a little bit about the spiritual path, it's worth gambling on your spiritual connection. And like Baba said, it's all illusion. And when it's all over, at that moment of realization, everything, the good and bad, the sad and the happy, just vanish. They don't mean anything. Because the glory of the realized state is so fantastic that a whole journey, animal stage, stone stage, saint stage, any stage, vanishes like mist. And you realize you are God. And so what was sad or good or up or down in the game, at the end of the game, it's all over. You're out of the illusion. The game is over, but the goal has been achieved. And I always think, in Monopoly, it's Baba's Monopoly. Play money. Rules of karma. Play money. And do not pass God. Anyway, Baba liked games. He loved to play Atcha-Patcha, and he liked cricket. He was a good cricketer. He played checkers, played marbles. He said, I played marbles with the universe. And there's some nice shots in movies of Baba playing. I think in the new movie we're getting from Erwin Luck, he has some shots of Baba playing marbles. Oh. Great. Hips down, And so Baba took part in sports and so forth. He loved games. In this new book of Lord Mayor, Baba's childhood is described with such excitement of how Baba went through his boyhood playing games with the other boys and being a leader in the sports and fights and everything. It's really a wonderful story. You should all read it. Baba would go around and do this to people. Wow. And he said, look cheerful, it helps others. Don't have a pruned face. And then I suppose you have to try to feel cheerful. It's a little more difficult. And maybe do something to cheer somebody else up. That's 3. I'm on 3 now. And the 4th one I try, again going back to the game, that it's all a game, it's illusion. And I like Baba's statement where he said, nothing is serious but lack of love for God. Well, I think of that, these dreadful scenes you go through. That's not serious. The only thing could be that I don't love God. That's really serious. And the 5? Well, Baba's sense of humor. It's Leela, it's play. And the cheerfulness is sort of a sense of humor. Baba never, all those stories of his blue bus tours and everything, he wanted everybody to tell jokes, to be silly. They used to do, what is that rubbing thing? Dum 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 da dum dum da dum da dum. They'd sing that on the bus, hour after hour, that silly little John Brown's Bodies. Yeah. So you see, even with the Avatar, what fun you can have in the middle of what was a pretty grueling tour.
That's what they were singing?
That was one of those things. Can't parade at all. Rub your chest.
That's really good. That's too good.
So he got them all.
Let's remember that.
Okay, so did you know that chess, one of the oldest games in the world, about 5,000 years ago, came from the teachings of Zoroaster? It's an old Persian game of the forces of darkness and light, and black and white, the chessmen, and the rules of the game and everything. And it was even used in as a substitute for war, warring territories, kings would play chess. And whoever won the kingdom. Wonderful idea. Wish we do it now. Get Reagan and Gorbachev. The Russians would win at chess. In our archives, we had a wonderful reading from all of the Mongoli that Chris taped and photographed. And this is what Rano said. This is a message to all of us in Los Angeles. He talks about meeting Baba for the first time. On meeting Baba, they took Mani in first. Ruano and Quentin went to see Baba in this funny little hotel. I mean, opposite the door of Baba's room was a sort of stairs. There were no chairs, nothing, and the hall was very dim. So I just sat on the stairs, waiting my turn, getting more and more nervous by the minute. At last the door opened, and someone said, "Come in." To this day, I don't know who was in the room with Baba. I remember seeing myriads of people, but no clear faces. I saw only Baba on that couch, with the most radiant expression. The most beautiful expression of sweetness and the love. I think I must have sat there, gazed at him. I just don't know what happened. I was so entranced, just looking at Baba. The next thing I knew, I was outside in the hall. And knowing how Baba does things, after I gazed at him, he probably said, "Take her out." Somebody finally took me by the arm. I don't know how I got out. I don't know how I left the room. All that night, Baba's face was in my mind's eye. I said, this is Baba. Yes, Rano passed away Friday, and I believe she was around 86 years old. And she met Baba when she was quite young, just in her 20s, and spent her whole life, gave her whole life to Baba. And she was one of the very few Westerners that was invited to stay in the ashram, and still stayed to the very end, living in India, devoted to Baba. She was one of the close women Mongoli. And now she's joined Baba. Estimated, there's 6 billion people in the world, roughly. But just think of the people on the, quote, other side that are out of incarnation. There are probably literally lots more than are in incarnation. And then also new souls are coming through evolution all the time. And Baba did explain one thing, that the population increased during this avataric advent because souls from the other planets, there are 18,000 other places in the universe, Baba told us, where human life exists. Other worlds where they're more intelligent and have less heart, or more heart and less brain, types of human life. But they all have to come to this ridiculously small planet to start on the spiritual path. In other words, you have these 8,400,000 lives. They're not all lived on this planet. They could be lived on some other planet. And then when you're drawn here, and the avataric advents, but like when Christ was here, Buddha, Krishna, and so on, there's an influx of the higher birth rate later on, which certainly seems to be true right now. And because the souls are drawn, it's just like moths drawn to the light. They don't know why, perhaps consciously, they're taking birth here. But just to be in his atmosphere, to be at the time of manifestation, even though they might not consciously know about Baba at this moment, there are millions of people out there who have no idea about Baba, or that we're still in the period of manifestation. But their souls have been drawn here, and somehow the influences that Baba worked on them, on the inner planes, worked on the consciousness of mankind. So they got the benefit, they're getting the benefit. So that's why there's an influx. And then it will sort of slack off in between Baba's manifestation. I don't know if that answers the question. It certainly doesn't go by biology, but what do they know about incarnating and excarnating? The avatar takes human form, he lives a human life, and then drops the body. And then after that is the period of what we call the manifestation period, where his influence is very powerful, and you can contact him directly. You don't need some other saint or guru or guide. Yes, well, while he's here too, of course. And he comes back on a cyclic pattern, and Baba said if he comes back in 700 years, then the period of manifestation is 100 years. If he comes back in 1400 years, which is the max, then this period of manifestation we're in now will be 200 years. So we don't know where we're at quite now, whether it's going to be 100 or 200. But right now is a very dynamic time spiritually. Although if you watch the 6 o'clock news, I mean, I wouldn't agree with it, but underneath is tremendous ferment. And that's Baba's work. That's the period of manifestation. Well, I know we also were going to mention this evening that we lost a very dear Baba lover, Kent Rogers, 2 days ago, just in his 30s. He was jogging and dropped on the jogging path, very sudden death. So that's what you're thinking of, that people...
And a woman in Jim's room.
Oh yes, I remember.
Most recently too.
Yeah, unexpected. Well, I think they're just basically the law of karma is there. That's their moment to go. But how lucky that they know Baba, because they'll move into Baba's realm on the other side. You know, but Baba has explained that. And your contact with him cuts out a lot of garbage when you pass over. And you can read about that in Mershada's book. A lot about that. And also in Bao's book, what happens after death. If you're really, like these people on the monks or saints on the sixth plane, they're so absorbed in God that they don't eat, they don't drink. And their body just goes on taking care of itself. So they're so into the now that the body even responds. Yeah, fabulous stories. Well, now I think, thank you all for playing my game, for playing the game. And keep on playing Baba's game. Game of love.
That would be just about what's the latest scoop on the mysterious book that Baba wrote.
Ooh, who's the other 13? Oh, Barbara! She's got it.
She brought it here.
What was the question? I didn't hear it.
The latest scoop on love.
On the mysterious book written by
The last book.
God, I haven't heard any scoop on that for a couple of years.
I know who has it.
The book or the scoop?
31 flavors. Well, why aren't you sharing it?
Yeah, who is it?
No. Kill him.
Could you give us some
Initials?
gossip about sharing facts?
I know something. Jack is going to China real soon.
Who is?
Are you going to pick up the book?
Jack is planning to go to China. He'll give us everything back.
That book, I don't know whether Papa is going to keep us wondering for the next 700 years about the book.
There was a story about the book, I remember now.
Oh, yeah.
Mansari had a dream about many years ago. There were a lot of people asking, everybody was asking, where's the book, where's the book? And then Oliver was about to dig up Meherzad. He dug a trench all around. And he had figured out that it was by throwing Hafiz. I don't know what he did. He figured out that it was somewhere around Meherzad, around the borders, and so he was about to take his shovel and start digging. And then Erich told him, look, let's go to Hafiz, and we'll sit in front of Baba's chair and we'll ask where the book is. And so they asked, and the guzzle that came up was, do not ask, do not ask, in every phrase. Mansari had a dream, and her dream was that I think he was coming up the hill, and she was looking at him, and he had this big coat on, and he had reached into his coat, and I'll come out here, you can see it more, and he lifts a black object out of his coat, just so it's about an inch or 2 inches up, and she looked at it, and she said, "The book?" And Baba smiled, and he said yes, and then he put it back in his pocket, and he just patted it like that.
Great.